In dedication to the Scarlet Woman, Layla is Crowley's comedy, in the Greek sense, Household Gods, which is in public domain, so I'll link it below with our typical assortment of relevant songs. In the opening scene, it is mentioned that at the hearth is an altar for Lares and Penates. Lares and Penates deals with the household or family. They are the familiars or household deities. Familiar etymologically means household or family. You can even hear familiar in the name family. While Lares are deities or spirits that guard the family and home, the Penates ensure copia or abundance via food. Many, of course, associate familiars with witchcraft, which are demonic assistants that serve witches who can often shapeshift, highlighting upon alchemic transfiguration or transmutation, and of course Deleuze's notion of becoming animal. Witches are referenced in A Thousand Plateaus directly in the chapter 1730, becoming intense, becoming animal, becoming imperceptible. Deleuze directly states that becoming animal is to be considered an act of sorcery, since 1, it makes a pact or alliance with a demon, and 2, the demon allows the human to pass through this border, allowing them to become other. So by associating with animals, i.e. that which is non-human, 1 escapes identicality for a sense of difference, moving from molar to molecular, leading to lines of flight to the outside. So how does the demon or non-human come into play? When looking to the Penates, they are associated with the Lares, which we mentioned, and the Vesta, as well as the genius of the patriarch or father of the family. Vesta is the goddess of the hearth and home. The genius, however, is something we discussed several times on this channel already, tied to one's guardian angel, linked to the Algoides, the notion of one's daemon or guiding spirit or a fairy, as well as the astral body or egg, in addition to the bornless ritual, which helps one gain access to their guardian angel thanks to this headless god. And so the connection between the egg or body without organs being used for transformative purposes is easy enough to see. The familiars of witches were common animals like cats, toads, and dogs. The scientific name for dog, of course, is Canis familiaris. A fun fact, since we brought him up before with King Crimson's song Lizard, but it should be noted that Prince Rupert of the Rhine often brought his own dog, named Boy, into battle with him, which led many to believe the dog had magical powers of some kind, acting as Rupert's own form of a witch's familiar in some sense. Tangential aside, however, the problem for our philosophical purposes then becomes as such. While focusing so much on the nuclear family fits in fine with psychoanalytic theory, schizoanalysis sees the nuclear family as that which tends to repress desire, especially through the Oedipus complex, thus preventing us from becoming other. As is often said, the nuclear family should be treated as an atom bomb about ready to blow. So obviously this householdness or constant emphasis on family would be considered borderline incestuous to someone like Nick Land, confined to identity as opposed to difference. So how do we solve this? Mark Fisher would look to Freud's concept of the uncanny, linking the uncanny to das Unheimlich, meaning the unhomely. For Freud, the uncanny is that which is familiar but suddenly seems unfamiliar. It is the sense of dread we experience when repressed thoughts or emotions resurface or reemerge at a conscious level, causing the familiar to seem unfamiliar. Heimlich means homely, while unheimlich means unhomely. Fisher would link this to Derrida's idea of hauntology, where our futures, which have been lost thanks to capitalism, keep people stuck in a form of retro reality, where the past horrors, much like the horrors of the Overlook Hotel in Stephen King's The Shining, repeat over and over, and it's seemingly inescapable. Johnny Rotten, of course, wrote of lost futures, as did Bobby Kahn. And so what does Crowley come to convey in his comedy Household Gods? Well, firstly, the main character is named Crassus, most likely in reference to, of course, Marcus Licinius Crassus, who was a politician and Roman general. More importantly, he was a member of the First Triumvirate, which also included Julius Caesar and Pompey. However, Crassus did not get along with Pompey, and so the alliance degenerated upon Crassus's death during the Battle of Carrhae, leading Caesar to cross the Rubicon, thus leading to civil war with Pompey, beating him at the Battle of Pharsalus, and thus ensuring Caesar's reign. It should also be noted that Crassus was the richest man in Rome, and so this is probably Crowley's way of saying how one can obtain spiritual wealth for themselves. The opening remarks of Crassus and Crowley's work notes how desire has fallen dead akin to the hearth, where there is smoke but no warming flame, signaling a lack of love and the prevalence of death. Crassus's lover, Adela, has retreated to the woods of Pan and the fairy, causing Crassus to seek consolation in the character Alicia. Needless to say, it deals with Crowley's own philosophy of love being linked to the law and will, as well as the Night of Pan and the Whore of Babylon, which we have discussed at length already, tied to the number 210, showing how all links to both one and none. Pneuma, or breath, is noted to link the soul to death and thus rebirth, tied to the mysteries and the veil of Isis. It is also noted that one must leave their home in order to find their home, tied to the notion of 23 skidoo and getting outside, as it were. The character Alicia further notes that by day, one should adhere to the Lares, the deities of the home, but by night, they should adhere to Pan, so a healthy balance of order and chaos. And thus we see the equivalent nature of life with death tied to rebirth, which we link to concepts like Solve et Coagula, as well as Abrahadabra and Deleuze's lobster god, the clause of deterritorialization and reterritorialization, as well as Apollonian order and Dionysian chaos, as Dionysus was torn apart via Sparagmos. And thus one escapes the nuclear family of the psychoanalytic home, embracing the fire of desire noted by Heraclitus or Prometheus, which can be used to alchemically transform into something other. The familiar of the witch can shapeshift into any new form it wishes, dying and being reborn endlessly, tied to the Greek notion of genius and one's guardian angel, linked to the body without organs or egg becoming. Alicia in Crowley's comedy turns out to be the cupbearer of Jove or Jupiter, i.e. Ganymede, thus being a metaphor for the Holy Grail, leading to Crassus's ego death, causing Crassus to question who he is since he fell in love with a boy, whom he assumed to be a woman. While Alicia refers to Adela and Crassus as blind babes, in reference to the abyss of Choronzon, of which we are all babes of. Adela is seen making love to a white swan, which Crassus kills. However, the swan has already illuminated Adela with its love, linked to Luciferian light and the albedo stage of alchemy, filling her with eternity after its death, since the peacock's tail or Satrinitas would follow the albedo stage, noted by the white light refracting into a rainbow or endless and eternal colors, which we correlated with Bergsonian duration via intuition, producing Deleuzian pluralities. With such mysteries too great to understand, Adela and Crassus make love, being rejoined in a new domestic relationship. The eagle takes Alicia away, akin to the myth of Ganymede, thus making them associated with the element of air, which signifies the spiritual realm, and thus the fire of the domestic household, which was once but mere smoke without fire, referencing the Negredo stage, is rekindled with their burning flames of passion, the rubedo, and the air of the spiritual. Thus, by getting outside and dying, one is reborn, escaping repression by embracing our desires with that which is alien or unknown, aiding us in becoming something other. Zeus himself was a well-known shapeshifter, shapeshifting into animals so as to interact with man, just as he does in Crowley's comedy via the figure of Jove or Jupiter, who is Zeus. So witchcraft, it can be said, is an uncanny form of familiarity, helping call to man's conscious that which he has repressed or left unconscious, nullified by the abyss, i.e. death, tied to a Deleuzian death drive, and aiding him to become animal or other so as to engage with the world via a line of flight to the outside. Alicia led Crassus to the white swan, just as how Alice is led along by the white rabbit while in Wonderland. Fun fact, in Greek myth, Zeus transformed into a swan specifically so as to mate with Leda, who was the queen of Sparta, producing two children, one of whom was Helen of Troy, linked to the Trojan War, and thus Eris and Discordianism via the apple with the word Callista on it. It should be noted that Adela is Leda spelled backwards, where the two letter A's are unified, but one is also absent depending on which word is referenced in relation to the other. So, like the two T's in the word tarot only has one T in rota, thus the two joins as one, and the one links to the zero, which is absent, and thus the two are unified as one, coming full circle, while also being absent. It's another good way, I think, to convey 210. Anyways, in the Greek myth, Helen was hatched from an egg due to Zeus being a swan. The other child was Pollux, who, along with his half-brother Castor, were known as Gemini, the twins, and we have noted the significance of twins in alchemy already, and how, of course, the egg connects to the body without organs. Leda and the Swan would later be the name of a poem by William Butler Yeats and mentioned in Lou Reed's song Power and Glory, The Situation, which I'll link below as well. Either way, the story of Leda and the Swan signifies the unity between finite and infinite, between man and God, akin to the relationship between Keter and Malkuth, where While it's easy for the neophyte to see how the 1 links down to the 10, it's only the Ipsissimus who can link the 10 back up to the 1, rising up the spheres of the Sephiroth via the 22 Tarot and the pathway of the serpent, so as to find their true self, joining below with that what is, of course, above. In the Jungian sense, this is, of course, amalgamating the unconscious aspects with the conscious ego to form the true self. Jung believed it could lead to individual growth, whereas Freud believed repression was merely a defense mechanism used to keep the ego safe from feelings of anxiety or dread, as noted with the uncanny. And so what can we say but to embrace, like certain witches, an uncanny form of the familiar? Perhaps we will call them familiar and uncanny witches. As Deleuze notes in the section Memories of a Theologian, the devil is a transporter along with his demons. Thus, like the peacock's tail in alchemy, the rainbow, it's not just one degree of white light and individual identity, but a spectrum of different distributions, a Deleuzian individual where Simondonian individuation never ceases, right? And so via this daemon or egg of intensities, this astral body of white luminous light, one shapeshifts as a familiar while acting unfamiliar and uncanny. With that said, I swear to God that I'm not a furry, and also, please remember Leviticus 18:23.